Let's get ready to rumble! This is Nasrec Sunday, and we have the heavyweight bout of the ANC, the 55th National Conference. You have Cyril Ramaphosa versus Zweli and Mkhize. Guys, good morning. Bumanelo Mkabela, political analyst, and Jason Felix, he's our senior political reporter, guys. It's Sunday. It's the day we've been waiting for. It's the big day. How do you feel? Jason?
Excited much.
I'm excited.
Lots of drama, and we can expect the same today. Of course, another late night for us. We fully expect that. But it's really down to the wire, and it's a nail-biting battle, especially between Cyril Ramaphosa and former health minister Zweli Mkhize.
Mpumi, how do you feel?
It's an exciting moment, but it's all down to Pala versus digital vibes.
Yeah.
And that's how I characterize the final,
Yes.
which you dramatically announced.
Well, I'm like an announcer at a Las Vegas boxing bout, because this is pretty much what it is. Let me welcome all our viewers. My name is Peter Leto. I'm assistant editor at News24. We are live from Nasrec. It was a late night. We left here at 2 o'clock, half past 3, I think, Jason, it was. Last night, all the nominations were completed in the plenary hall. We now have the top 7, and I'm going to ask you, Mpumi, just to quickly explain why we don't have a top 6 anymore, but a top 7. The top 7 candidates who will contest the ANC senior leadership positions have now been identified. Voting has started. I think 200 voting booths over across the terrain or the area here at Nasrec, where over 4,000 delegates have started to vote now. It's going to take a good couple of hours. We will get the result today, I think. We don't know what time. But let me quickly run through the main bouts as we have. Let's start from the top. We've got Cyril Ramaphosa contesting the position of president against Zweli Mkhize. We've got for the deputy president Ronald Lamola versus Oscar Mabuyane and Paul Mashatile. We need to talk about that, gentlemen. For chairperson, Gwedi Mantashe versus David Masondo and Stan Matabata. For secretary general, Ntuli from KZN, Maswale from the Eastern Cape, and Mbalula from Gauteng. First, this deputy secretary general, and I wanted to talk about that. I mean, Nomvula Mokonyane, Mrs. Brightpack, Bosasa Brightpack herself, up against Phoebe Potgieter, second deputy general position. What is the Ramaphosa candidate's name again? I forget.
This is Gwen, but it's Maruping
Ramaphosa, and then a councillor from Western Cape, I don't know, Nomalunga.
Ronaldo Nolumanga. She's the interim provincial committee convener. She's one of the conveners there.
Okay, and then obviously the Treasurer General, Bujani Chake, Puli Mabe, and Zwandile Masila. Gentlemen, just to get us started off with, Mpumi, your impressions of how the slate politics played out in the ANC, how these different factions ensured that they have representations on the candidate lists, and in your impressions, what does it say about the ANC, and what does it say about unity or division in the ANC?
Well, Peter, there are so many observations to make here. I'll just make a few highlights.
Yes.
Now, if I were to follow your analogy of this grand finale and all of that, it's quite notable that in some of these positions being contested, they are defenders and challengers. In some of the positions, they are not defenders. In other words, the reigning incumbents, as things stand now, are not contesting, or they have not had the threshold required for them to stand again to defend their position. So you look at President Cyril Ramaphosa, for example. He's a defender because he's wanting to retain his position. There's a challenger, which is Zweli Mkhize. But the deputy president's post has got no defender because David Mabuza is out of the contention. So you only have new people trying their luck at the position. And if you look at the SG position, again, because Esma Hashule had been suspended, not been able to recontest again, that position has got no defender. So all of those people are new people contesting. Same as the new second deputy secretary position you're talking about. Naturally, because for the first time, there's no defender there. So those are newly contesting people. And again, if you look at the Treasurer General, there is no defender there because Paul Mashatile is now contesting for, is challenging for the Deputy President's position. So all those people contesting for Treasurer General are all new. So there's many of these positions, you can't say there are people who have the advantage of incumbency. Ramaphosa has that advantage, and
It's a big advantage.
It's a big advantage. He also has the advantage that doesn't have a strong challenger, in a sense that he doesn't have a clean candidate who can take him on. So you have a situation where he's facing Mkhize without digital vibes. Mkhize would have been a very, very strong candidate. He would have actually given Cyril Ramaphosa trouble. So absent a clean candidate, Ramaphosa is merely facing just another faction of the ANC, challenging his own faction of the ANC. So it's basically a contestation of faction of these two different factions. The other observation to make, Peter, is we have to contrast the outcomes of last night or early hours of the morning with what the ANC always promises. The key things that the ANC promises all the time is non-racialism and non-sexism. And then there's another one they always promise, which is youth development. So if you look at this contest, there is not much racial diversity in the contest. There's only 1% of mixed race in that among all the candidates. I think that's Tina Jumat Peterson. And in that whole slate politics, and when I look at all the numbers, it doesn't look like she stands a chance. I mean, having risen only from the floor, not from the nomination process that has been going on the last few weeks.
And that was acknowledged by the president in his speech, that there was a subtle erosion of the non-racialist character of the ANC.
Yes.
And that shows.
That shows. The other element, of course, is the non-sexism element. I mean, you can see from after Nkosazana Zuma and Ndio Zulu were taken out completely, they got a route out of this whole process from the beginning up to now. After they were taken out, there's no hope, there's no woman in the president's position, president and deputy president, and in the other positions, the women look weaker. They don't look like they can get anything, except maybe Nomvula Mokonyane. She looks like she's a relatively stronger candidate than the rest in terms of the numbers. Again, she's of weak character given the scandals of Sasa and all of these things. So from a racial and perspective and the non-sexism perspective, this top 6 or top 7 doesn't look good according to the ANC's own promises.
But Mpumi, I suppose that falls away if you are so hell-bent to make sure that your faction takes power, that stuff like diversity is a nice to have, but when it comes down to the nitty-gritty of obtaining power, that's not a big consideration, it seems like.
You're right. It's the same as the whole commitment to get new blood into the leadership of the ANC. The young people that are there, like David Masondo contesting for the national chairperson, not a youth, but relatively young according to ANC standards. The youngest person there is Ron Lamula contesting for the deputy president. In the number, if you look at the nomination numbers, again they didn't really stand a good chance unless between the time of nomination and now, bargaining and trade-offs have happened to at least secure them, better numbers. Again, which means that the ANC might come out of this conference without, a non-sexist top 7, without a non-racial top 7, and without a youth component, which communicates a renewal from a youth perspective going forward. That's my impression so far.
Jason, your impressions, and I want to ask you, I mean, Mpumi gave us a very good overview of who is contesting against whom, the racial issue, the gender issue. It's an enormously complicated process for these factions and slates to ensure that everyone in different micro-factions are represented from different provinces, races, gender. It's a very complicated process, isn't it? And so there was a lot of horse trading happening over the last 48 hours, hasn't there?
There's been horse trading up as we speak here. There's talks happening outside. These groups and factions and their senior lobbyists, especially in the Ramaphosa camp, they seem a bit worried about Zweli Mkhize's impact and the numbers he's getting, because it's surely getting up there. So I think there's horse trading and there's lobbying up until the last minute, up until they actually start voting, they will be lobbying. I think for Ramaphosa, especially for his faction, they're trying to satisfy everyone and trying to get everyone in as far as possible. Last night we saw Tina Jumat Peterson being nominated from the floor. I don't think we've had a candidate from the Northern Cape in the so-called top 6, I think since the 1950s. there's been absolutely no one. Not the Western Cape has been completely decimated when it comes to the NEC and the top 6 at least.
Which has had an impact on the racial diversity and gender diversity. Yeah.
Of course. And for me to see that kind of thing shows that it's really tense, and everyone is trying to get their piece of the pie, so if I can say that. But the horse trading especially will have a big impact on the Ramaphosa camp, because I think, especially with Stan Matabata, the Premier of Limpopo, I think his clash with Wedi Mantashe and the so-called tiff between Ronald Lamola and Oscar Mabayan from the Eastern Cape, none of them wanting to back down for the position of Deputy President. I think that is for all to see. It's for all. It's playing out all. Oscar Mabayana told us a few days ago that they're not desperate for positions, and clearly taking a swipe at Ronald Lamola, telling me that there's these factions that just go wherever they want to go and wherever they can get a position. So I think it's an enormous task, and the lobbying goes on till forever, up until, of course, midnight tonight.
Jason, give our viewers an idea of what's happening now. So voting has started. Work is still continuing in plenary, but groups are going, provinces are going out to go and vote at the different voting stations. Is it still possible to sway individuals up until the last moment? Is there still? Are you telling me that there's still some lobbying going on amongst provinces, branches, regions, voting blocks to try and sway them before they go into the voting the voting booth?
Yes, of course. One of the senior lobbyists is Mondli Gungubele from the Cyril Ramaphosa camp, who has addressed the Limpopo delegates, telling them that, look, Oscar Mabayane is our candidate, and let's go with Oscar, telling them that we love all these candidates, we love all our members, but we have to go as a united front to plenary and select one candidate at the end of the day. I think the lobbying at this hour it depends really on what province you can get. If you can get the Eastern Cape, Mpumalanga and Limpopo, maybe I think KwaZulu-Natal is a bit of a stretch. As a bit of a stretch, but I think those 3 provinces, if you can get them at the last minute, you would definitely be able to stand a chance and to convince them to vote otherwise. As for other provinces, the Northern Cape, the Western Cape, fairly irrelative in terms of numbers, but at the end of the day, it's all a numbers game, so we can't just cut them out completely.
Mpumi, I mean, we've done a couple of conferences together, we've seen how this works up close, but at the end of the day, it's up to an individual when he goes into that voting booth to execute the mandate of his region or his province or his PGC or whatever the case may be. But it's still up to that individual, isn't it? I mean, one individual can, in a game like this, when last time Ramaphosa won by 179 votes, I think it was, it can be very close.
There are certainly no guarantees. I mean, you remember in the 2017 elections what happened with the Mpumalanga group. There was a group of Mpumalanga people of about 150, I think, who actually made a huge impact in terms of voting for Ramaphosa when they were expected to have gone with Zuma, and those were the people that were considered to be Didi Mabuza's people. So Didi Mabuza was known to be like someone who can't confirm until the last minute. So I think those type of politics have continued. We saw there were reports, I don't know whether it's part of propaganda, that some people in Northwest might have been turning against Cyril Ramaphosa. At the same time, you also get reports that in KZN itself, there's no guarantees that the KZN group is united around one candidate. There's still a couple of people in KZN who would support Ramaphosa, but also in Limpopo, there are people who can support Mkhize as well, because then Matapata went to KZN to campaign to be elected chairperson here. And we don't know what the trade-off was. What is he promising KZN from Limpopo's perspective? So there's a lot of those type of trade-offs, horse trading, as Jason says, that can happen in the last minute. But in the end, it boils down to your point, that the individual on the voting booth must make a call.
And no one will know what that individual votes. I mean, you can just say, look, I voted for candidate X, but actually vote for candidate Y. Gents, just let your minds go a little bit as we go. We've got around 15 minutes left, and with around 5 minutes left, we're going to run through the top 7, and I want you to make some predictions. And we're going to hold you to it later on this afternoon. But think about it so long. Mpumi, Cyril Ramaphosa, he needs around 2,400 votes to win this contest. The same for Zweli and Mkhize. What do you think is going through his mind and his camp's mind at the moment? On this Sunday morning, do you think when he woke up at Hyde Park, he quickly checked what was going on in Pala Pala on his Pala app on his phone just to see if the Buffalo are fine. What do you think's going through his mind? Do you think he's confident? Do you think he's worried, or do you think he's got the sewn up? What do you think is going through the president's mind?
Look, it's much more difficult, Peter, if you are the incumbent, because first of all, you have had a record of being in government for 4 years or so, and then you would like some of the things you have done, sort of legacy projects, to remain. Some of them are unfinished, and then you still have a lot of things that you wanted to do going forward, which is why in the first place you are contesting.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that as an incumbent you stand to lose. But if you are the challenger, like Zweli Mkhize, you absolutely have nothing to lose. The only thing Zweli Mkhize stands to lose is if he doesn't win here, then his prospects for prosecution becomes, real, and they become like, urgent, like they become inevitable. Whereas if he were to win here, even though, the case against him, seems to be stronger, although he has not been charged, seems to be stronger, there's a possibility that, with the political position, perhaps maybe you can delay things. We saw that happening with Zuma. I think along those lines, Ramaphosa is also thinking, because he doesn't know where Pala is going to go. So many agencies are investigating him. Reserve Bank, Public Protector, Hawks, IPED, the lot, SARS. So he also doesn't know where things would go, but he's also thinking that if he were to hold on to this position, chances are that he might survive. He might use this position to survive. We've seen that game before. So unfortunately that we have these candidates that have got cases to answer, contesting each other. So we have to decide, well, candidates may have to, or voters might have to decide who is the least bad of the two. But Ramaphosa's main concern, I think, would be that he's the guy that opened the doors for the NPA to start prosecutions on state capture.
Look, he's a process guy, isn't he? I mean, from the very beginning, he was never going to interfere in the NPA and institutions like that.
Yes, he would know that with him gone, a lot of those prosecutions might not happen. The second issue is that more than any other candidate, Ramaphosa stands a chance of rescuing the ANC from complete defeat. So even if it's defeated in 2024, it might be defeated respectably with him on board than a complete rout that might happen without him. So there's also that concern and dynamic in his head. And he's a guy with a huge constituency outside the ANC, and that in business and other sectors. So he knows that he carries a lot of that kind of responsibility to that constituency. So his defeat, he will be concerned that he will be leaving those people vulnerable.
Jason, last night, I mean, it was quite interesting, or this morning rather, a couple of hours ago, when some of the provinces started singing against Ramaphosa, moving towards the front of the stage. Now, there were other provinces that sang in defense of Ramaphosa. So it's not as if he was sitting in this hall isolated, was he?
No, not at all. I think if one had to judge his facial expressions, there were times when he was a bit worried, especially when nominations were called for and some were declined. It surprised certainly all of us.
Yeah, we need to talk about that.
But when we look at, obviously, the rebel it's been led by KwaZulu-Natal. We know that. But then on the other side,
they're sitting right in front of him.
And they're sitting right in front of him. But on the other side, you had the Eastern Cape, which is a strong backup from Ramaphosa. On the far end, the Western Cape is on the even further end, and then the Northwest and Limpopo and the Free State on the far end. So we had this, I want to say, clash of factions. Obviously through singing, we hope it's not a festival of chairs or anything like that. But definitely for Cyril, I totally agree with you, Mpumi, that he'll definitely be worried about his constituency, what he would leave behind if he were to leave. The international community, I think, is one that you forgot to mention. I mean, I can't remember how many international trips Cyril had this year, where he has solidified South Africa's foreign policy, so-called, and our economic policy. So I think he would be worried. For Zweli Mkhize, I think he has nothing to worry about, because at the end of the day, he's got nothing to lose apart from digital vibes. I think he'd be strong enough to defend himself, and obviously that would become a more urgent issue, but politically at least, he's got nothing to lose.
Jason, and then Mpumi, same question. What do you make of Zweli Mkhize's campaign up until now? Generally speaking, he started his campaign pretty much the moment he left his ministerial position.
That's correct.
Working on that full time. What do you make of his campaign up until now? He is now the nominee against Ramaphosa. He seems to have a lot of support. It seems like he did a lot of groundwork, grassroots level work over the last couple of months. How would you characterize his campaign? Has it been effective? Has it been successful? And how much money do you think has gone into it?
Well, Peter, the question of money, I can't answer. That's probably a difficult question. But I think his campaign has been relatively focused on KZN and the ANC Youth League. I think in KZN he had some big drives. We didn't see him in many other provinces. I saw him in Cape Town once with the ANC Youth League event there. Wasn't very well organized. It didn't attract the numbers as maybe as Cyril would. Obviously, given the fact that Cyril is still state president, but it's been relatively okay for him, given the circumstances. But again, it's really focused on KZN. I don't think he's made a massive impact in provinces like Gauteng, which is a very influential province, Limpopo especially, and the Eastern Cape even. I don't think he made inroads. I don't think he had an impact there, and those are the provinces that he will be needing to support him to get to the presidency. I don't think it's been the best that it could have been. It's certainly better than Lindiwe Sisulu's campaign, but it's not
that crashed and burned last night.
Crashed and burned last night, but it hasn't been as effective, I think, as he would have wished it to be effective.
Me, I tell you, Peter, I think that Ramaphosa is lucky in a sense that as an incumbent, he has had several people trying to challenge him, and the more there were many, the less likely the chance that they can consolidate a united front. That had a potential.
Because at one stage you had Zweli, Lindiwe, NDZ.
Yeah. So what that did from the beginning is that it split the mentality of the people who would like to get Cyril out of the presidency. So they were all divided into these three candidates.
And it split the finances, all of it.
Until the last moment. And the last moment is too late to consolidate, because by that time, Ramaphosa's people has also campaigned among those people. So to consolidate in the last minute sort of disadvantages really a great time, because Ramaphosa is standing alone on one side, and there's this all other multiplicity of people, two of whom collapsed, and then you are left with Zweli, and the two that collapsed, there's no guarantee they'll fall under Zweli. But assuming they will all consolidate under Zweli, look at the nomination numbers, packed all of them together and put under Zweli, it still doesn't meet Ramaphosa's level of support, unless perhaps there's a flip from last night or midnight up to now. So there's that problem. The other thing with one last point about Zweli Mkhize's campaign, which is the same problem with the other two candidates that have already fallen on the wayside, is that they're focused on being anti the incumbent, and which means they've basically borrowed from the JZ script towards Polokwane. But the contexts are not the same, and therefore the script should not be the same. So Ramaphosa is a different figure. He's got his own strengths and weaknesses, but he certainly cannot be a Mbeki in the Zuma Mbeki context, because there was that dilemma or that drama of Mbeki firing Zuma, which many people saw as unfair. And then Zuma challenging this incumbent, a very strong incumbent. So he was a victim guy who played victimhood, and it worked. It consolidated around that. So Lindiwe Sisulu attacking Cyril Ramaphosa, but she's not a victim. It doesn't work. NDZ attacking Ramaphosa to gain votes as a victim. It doesn't work. They're sitting in cabinet. He has not fired them. Mkhize resigning on his own, not fired, gets out because he knows there's digital vibes issues to answer for.
And there are investigations against him.
Yes, and then he attacks Ramaphosa. It doesn't get that fire. You see. So they lacked a political strategy to attack an incumbent who is not overtly fighting them.
And it was using the incumbency, like you say. I mean, it's a massive advantage to be the incumbent president of this country and of the party. Man, that gives you a massive advantage. Guys, before we run down the candidates and in a quick fire fashion, you tell me who you think is going to win. Let's play devil's advocate for a moment and argue that Zweli Mkhize wins tonight. What happens then? Zweli Mkhize wins tonight. He's the president. We can talk about the rest of the top 7. But what happens tonight if Zweli Mkhize wins? What happens tomorrow morning and for the rest of the year and early next year?
Well, I think officially, from a government point of view, Zweli Mkhize doesn't become the state president. Cyril will still be the president. I think the markets will probably react very badly towards Zweli Mkhize's election as president. I think the ANC would also be in disarray. I think the ANC will be even more factionalized. The divisions will be even more stronger because of the tenseness and the intensity of this contestation. And like Mpumi said, Cyril wasn't attacking them, they were attacking him. I mean, that's just going to the lobbyists in the government. It will also cause some fear within the cabinet, because who's coming next? We also know that the RET faction of the ANC very much behind Zweli and Mkhize. I mean, if you all just be
So there's
honest
an
about it.
expectation they will
So
make a strong
there
return.
could be the expectation. For me, certainly, there's the expectation that they will definitely make a comeback. People like NDZ will definitely still be there, even though she was there under Ramaphosa. Zweli Mkhize supporters.
Mvula Mokonyane is very strong, yeah.
She could also be there backing
Batabile Dlamini.
Joe Masangwane. All of those guys, he voted against the Pala Pala report, or in favor of the Pala Pala report
Yeah.
in Parliament last
Yeah.
week. So those kind of guys would then come in. But from an official point of view, I don't think it will be immediately that Zweli Mkhize becomes president. But the day he does become president, I think we are in for a tough time.
I have a slightly different view from Jason's.
Yes.
I think, Peter, if Zweli Mkhize wins now, the stakes are so high. And that's why you saw that drama at the opening of the conference. If Zweli Mkhize were to win here, he'll be under enormous pressure from KwaZulu-Natal and elsewhere to actually recall the president. So it chances are that either Ramaphosa delivers the last State of the Nation address in February or he doesn't. If he does deliver it, he won't reach June. By June they would have recalled it. If he loses here, that will be the end.
Two centers of power does not work.
Yes, it will not work, but also you must also look at why is there a fight. The fight is not because someone wants to control the ANC. End of story. The ANC on itself is not the end. It's not the end game. The end game is to be in government. And when you are in government, you are able to do a lot of other things. And you are able to, I mean, I can imagine, for example, Zweli Mkhize becoming president, he's got a lot of priorities. One priority will be that, all of these negative comments made about him in the Zondo report, about Edwin Sodi and all these other, dramas and the Bosasa and all this things, the stuff that he did when he was ANC treasurer, stuff that he did when he was in health.
Yeah.
All of those things, he has to find a way that they disappear. Because he can't be a president and see his authority being undermined by this type of
Because you didn't have a
investigation.
chance that a sitting president might be charged by the Hawks for corruption.
Yes, and then you'll be under immense pressure from the Jacob Zuma crowd to say we delivered you, and therefore all these other things that are happening affecting our friends who are sitting in prison in Dubai, all these things, we want these things to come to an end. You must unite the ANC on a different plank, and the different plank is that let's all let things go and start afresh, because that's what they want. On the other hand, the Cyril camp says we must investigate, prosecute, and clean up. So the Mkhize presidency will be totally different, and they will want it to happen now. They're not going to wait.
But is it possible for to happen though? Because what I'm thinking is that we in December, State of the Nation is next to the opening of Parliament. Will they rumble through that process?
No, they can wait for him to deliver State of the Nation address, but the recall is inevitable.
Yeah,
you will not be president.
I mean, if you take the precedent from 2017, 2018, I mean, less than 2 months after Ramaphosa won, Zuma was out.
Yes.
After Polokwane, it took 9 months, but that was a different situation. But it took 9 months to get rid of Mbeki, so it is kind of inevitable. I agree with you. Okay, guys, we've got a couple of minutes left. This is the best section of this program. It's called Quickfire. It's a new thing. Without thinking, and I'm going to start on my far side, on the far right, because Mpumi looks like a far right type of guy. President Ramaphosa Mkhize.
I think it's Ramaphosa.
Ramaphosa.
Okay. Deputy President Lamola Mabuyane Mashatile.
I think Mashatile.
Mashatile.
Okay, guys. Chair Mantashe Masondo Matabata.
I suspect Matabata.
I'll go for Gwedi.
Oh, that's interesting. Secretary General Ntuli Maswale Mbalula.
I suspect Ntuli.
And Tuli as well. Yeah.
Okay, unity in action here. First Deputy Secretary General Mokonyane or you might Peterson.
Mokonyane.
Mokonyane.
Whoa, guys. Second Deputy Secretary General Ramaphosa Nomu Langa.
Ramaphosa.
Nolumanga.
Nolumanga. Sorry. And the Treasurer General Chauke Mabe Masina.
Most likely Chauke.
Chauke as well. Yeah. I don't see the others. Yeah.
Then lastly, the quality of the candidates, guys. Pumi, does this inspire confidence? Is this a top 7 of the ANC that you think can pull the country out of the quagmire it finds itself in? Infused with dynamic, creative ideas about how to kickstart the economy, improve infrastructure. Is this the type of leadership we need?
I doubt it. I mean, I always say it's a contest of it's a relative thing.
Yeah.
who is best, not because they are best, but in relation to somebody else. So we have reached that stage of the ANC where they can't, the best cannot come to the top. I mean, except for Cyril Ramaphosa, even him, I'm saying so with great qualification because of Palapala.
Yes, yes.
I think Palapala wiped out his integrity quite a lot. So except for him and Ntuli, especially Ntuli, I think of all the people that I've mentioned are likely to win, I think Ntuli comes across as a much credible candidate.
There's no cloud over his head as far as we can see.
As far as we know.
Okay.
And so I think except for him, he's the guy who has that dynamism we are talking about. He's got that youthfulness we are talking about. He's got that ANC discipline, which we don't know of it being corrupted. So he's got that kind of stature, and he has survived in a politically volatile province where at some point he fought but stood firm on his views, despite the fact that he was being attacked from his home province for being a sellout when it comes to supporting Zuma. So that's the guy you will want in a leadership position, that whenever there's attempts to sway him, he has got a firm ground to stand on what he believes in. So other than him, there's no dynamism in the top 7.
Jason, your impression? Strong top 7 group of candidates, will they pull the country out of the place that we are in now?
I agree with Mpumi. I'd like to focus on Nomvula Mokonyane and Tina Joemat-Pettersson. I think they were probably the worst ministers in cabinet that we've had in a very long time.
You're right.
Nomvula Mokonyane, the water scandal, when she was the Minister of Water Affairs.
Bosasa,
Bribepacks. She once said that, oh, don't worry about the rand, if it falls, we'll just pick it up. People with economics like that will run the country into ruins. Tina Joemat-Pettersson, highly ineffective as an energy minister. Not that Gwedi Mantashe or the others.
Well, she wanted to sign that nuclear deal, a one-page nuclear deal.
Exactly. So when you look at people like that, I highly doubt that the ANC has the muster to take us out of the problems that we are in. Maybe so Ramaphosa, but I agree with you. Palapala has eroded his integrity and what has been left of it. I think it will be. He will have to fall on his sword one day or another, where Palapala is concerned. But I doubt that the ANC has the muster to take us forward.
Jason Felix, Mpumelelo Mkhabela, people of News24 world, my colleagues are semi-negative about some of these candidates, unfortunately, but they both think Ramaphosa will win. Let me be the odd one out to say I think Zweli Mkhize is going to win, just so we've got something else on the panel. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be covering the rest of the day up until the very end of the heavyweight bout, which is taking place just behind us in the plenary hall. Follow News24 for up-to-date analysis, breaking news, and all the rest of it from all of us here at Nasrec in the south of Johannesburg on Big Fight Sunday. Have a good afternoon.